Rain poured outside as Daniel Brooks pulled his old pickup truck into the parking lot of Hayes Prestige Motors, the state's most exclusive luxury dealership. His 12-year-old daughter, Emma, looked through the windshield at the rows of Ferraris, McLarens, Lamborghinis, and Bugattis. "Dad! I've never seen so many expensive cars." Daniel smiled. "Neither have I." He had received a phone call the night before from an old customer. "They're about to scrap something special. If you're curious, come tomorrow morning." Daniel had learned long ago that curiosity often led to opportunity. They walked into the massive service center. Inside, nearly 20 technicians surrounded a silver hypercar with its rear body panels removed. Diagnostic computers flashed red warning messages. A frustrated service manager threw a clipboard onto the workbench. "We're done." Another mechanic sighed. "The engine's finished. The replacement alone will cost over $200,000. Several customers overheard the conversation and shook their heads. One whispered, "At that price, I'd rather buy another car." Just then, a woman wearing a tailored charcoal suit stepped into the workshop. Victoria Hayes, CEO of Hayes Prestige Motors. She looked at the silent technicians. "So?" The service manager answered. "We've tested everything. Fuel system, ECU, turbochargers, compression. The engine is beyond repair." Victoria sighed. "Prepare the estimate. $200,000. We'll recommend a complete replacement." Daniel quietly watched from across the room. Emma tugged at his sleeve. "Dad." Everyone looks defeated. Daniel nodded. Sometimes that happens when people stop asking questions. One mechanic noticed Daniel. He laughed. "Can I help you?" Daniel smiled politely. "I was just watching." The mechanic folded his arms. "This isn't a neighborhood repair shop. It's a multi-million-dollar hypercar." Another technician joined in. "You wouldn't understand these systems." Several mechanics laughed. Emma looked uncomfortable. Daniel remained calm. "I wasn't trying to interrupt." Victoria noticed the small crowd gathering. She walked over. "Who are you?" Daniel introduced himself. "I'm an independent mechanic. I was told there was an interesting problem here." Victoria smiled sarcastically. "Interesting?" She pointed toward the dismantled engine. 20 certified engineers have spent 3 weeks on this." Our Daniel looked at Victoria without showing the slightest sign of nervousness. "You get exactly 5 minutes, Victoria said. "If you find something my engineers missed, I'll personally pay for your time. But if you waste hours, you leave immediately." Daniel smiled. "Fair enough." The service manager checked his watch. 5 minutes starts now." The technicians stepped aside, many of them smirking. Emma stood quietly near the toolbox, watching her father. Daniel didn't reach for a scanner. He didn't connect a laptop. Instead, he simply listened. He asked for the ignition to be turned on. The engine attempted to start. Click, click, cough, silence. Daniel closed his eyes for a moment. Then he walked around the car. He touched one coolant pipe. Another fuel line. Finally, he crouched beside the engine bay. One mechanic laughed. "He's listening to the engine." Another whispered. "Maybe he'll fix it with magic." Daniel ignored them. He noticed something no one else had mentioned. A tiny plastic electrical connector near the turbo system had a faint burn mark. Almost invisible. He gently unplugged it. Inside, one tiny sensor pin was badly corroded. Daniel looked up. "Has anyone replaced this sensor?" The service manager frowned. "It's only a pressure sensor. It couldn't cause all this." Daniel smiled. Are you sure? Victoria folded her arms. Our diagnostic computer never flagged that sensor. Daniel nodded. Because the sensor isn't completely dead. It's sending random values. The computer thinks the turbo is overboosting. So it activates engine protection. That's why everything looks like catastrophic engine failure. The room suddenly became quiet. One senior engineer stepped closer. That actually makes sense. Daniel looked at him. Do you have a spare sensor? The parts manager searched the inventory. After a minute he returned with a small box. He looked surprised. This part costs. He checked the label again. $14. Several mechanics exchanged confused looks.
Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Enjoy the video.
Daniel installed the new sensor in less than 2 minutes. He tightened the connector. Stepped back. And nodded. Try it now. The service manager turned the key. The engine cranked once. Then exploded to life with a smooth, powerful roar. The workshop froze. Every warning light disappeared from the dashboard. The diagnostic screen showed. No faults detected. One technician whispered. That's impossible. Another stared at the monitor. The engine was never broken. It was protecting itself. Emma jumped with excitement. Dad! You fixed it. Daniel smiled quietly. I replaced a $14 sensor. Victoria stood completely speechless. She had just watched a $200,000 repair estimate disappear. Because of a single overlooked part. But before anyone could congratulate Daniel, a black luxury SUV pulled into the workshop. An elderly man stepped out, accompanied by 2 assistants. The moment Victoria saw him, her expression changed. She whispered, Chairman Lawson. What are you doing here? The elderly man ignored everyone else. He walked straight toward Daniel. Smiled. And said, I've been looking for you for 3 years. Chairman Lawson's words stunned the entire workshop. I've been looking for you for 3 years. Victoria blinked in disbelief. You know him? Chairman Lawson smiled. I know exactly who he is. Daniel looked confused. I'm sorry, sir, but I don't think we've met. Lawson chuckled. We haven't. But I've heard your name many times. He turned to Victoria. 3 years ago, I created a private challenge. I secretly sent difficult mechanical problems to hundreds of dealerships across the country. The goal wasn't to find the best equipment. It was to find the best thinker. The engineers exchanged puzzled glances. Lawson continued. Almost everyone recommended replacing expensive parts. Only one report reached my office saying, keep searching. The real problem is probably something small. I later discovered those words came from an independent mechanic named Daniel Brooks. Daniel smiled slightly. I don't even remember writing that. Lawson laughed. That tells me everything I need to know. Victoria looked embarrassed. So today's repair wasn't luck. Lawson shook his head. No. It was observation. He walked around the hypercar. Do you know why 20 engineers failed? No one answered. Because they trusted computers more than their own eyes. Daniel quietly added. Technology is a tool. It shouldn't replace thinking. The workshop became silent again. Several engineers slowly nodded. Just then, the grateful owner of the hypercar rushed into the service center. He had been waiting upstairs for the repair estimate. Has the replacement engine arrived? Victoria smiled awkwardly. No. The engine never needed replacing. The customer looked confused. What? She pointed toward Daniel. He fixed it. The customer walked around the car, listening to the perfectly smooth engine. Then he asked, "How much do I owe?" The parts manager quietly answered, "The replacement part cost $14. The customer stared in disbelief. "I was told it would cost $200,000. Nobody spoke. The customer turned toward Daniel. "You just saved me nearly $200,000. Daniel smiled. "I saved you from replacing something that wasn't broken." The customer laughed. "I insist on rewarding you." Daniel politely shook his head. "I only ask that you remember one thing. Always ask for a second opinion." The customer smiled. "You've earned much more than that." Chairman Lawson stepped forward once again. "Daniel. I own one of the largest automotive engineering companies in the country. I'd like to offer you a position." The workshop erupted into whispers. Victoria looked shocked. The offer included a salary that most engineers could only dream about. Emma looked at her father with excitement. "Dad. Are we going to say yes?" Daniel looked at the offer. Then folded the paper. Everyone assumed he had accepted. Instead, Daniel handed it back. "I'm honored. But before I answer, I have one condition." The entire room fell silent. Chairman Lawson smiled. "What condition?" Daniel looked around the workshop and said, "If I work with your company, no honest mechanic should ever be pressured to recommend unnecessary repairs again." Chairman Lawson's smile grew even wider. He extended his hand. "That's exactly the answer I was hoping for." Daniel's condition echoed through the workshop. No honest mechanic should ever be pressured to recommend unnecessary repairs again. Chairman Lawson smiled. "I've spent 30 years building companies. But today, you reminded me why I started." He extended his hand. "You have my word." Daniel shook it. The entire workshop applauded. Even the technicians who had laughed earlier lowered their heads in respect. Victoria stepped forward. "Mr. Brooks. I owe you an apology. I judged you because of your clothes. I assumed an old pickup meant outdated knowledge." Daniel smiled. "Happens more often than you'd think." Victoria looked embarrassed. "I also nearly charged a customer $200,000 for a repair that cost $14,000. Daniel replied calmly. "The mistake wasn't expensive. It would have been refusing to learn from it." Those words stayed with everyone in the room. Chairman Lawson then turned to the dealership staff. "Gather everyone." Within minutes, every mechanic, advisor, and manager stood together. Lawson addressed them. "From today forward, our companies will follow a new policy. No repair over $50,000 will be approved until it's independently verified." The technicians looked at each other. "This will protect customers. And it will protect honest mechanics." Daniel nodded. "That's how trust is built." Just then, the owner of the hypercar returned. He was smiling. "I've made a decision." He handed Daniel an envelope. Inside was a certified check. Daniel looked at the amount. $200,000. He immediately tried to hand it back. "I can't accept this." The customer smiled. "You saved me exactly that amount. You earned it." Daniel shook his head. "I repaired a car. I didn't perform a miracle." The customer laughed. "Maybe not. But you restored my faith in honest mechanics." Emma quietly tugged on Daniel's sleeve. "Dad. What are you going to do?" Daniel thought for a moment. Then he looked at Chairman Lawson. "If I accept this money, I wanted to help people." Chairman Lawson smiled. "What do you have in mind?" Daniel answered. "A training scholarship. For young mechanics who can't afford school. The room became silent again. One young apprentice standing in the back wiped away a tear. He had been working 2 jobs just to pay his tuition. Victoria smiled. "Our dealership will match your donation." Chairman Lawson immediately added, "My company will triple it." The apprentice couldn't believe what he was hearing. As everyone celebrated, a security guard hurried into the workshop. "Mr. Lawson. You need to see this." He handed over a tablet. On the screen was an email from another luxury dealership. Attached was a diagnostic report. The estimate: $480,000. The reported fault sounded strangely familiar. Chairman Lawson looked at Daniel. Daniel read the report for only a few seconds. Then he quietly smiled. "I think they're replacing another engine. That doesn't actually need replacing." The entire room looked at him in amazement. Chairman Lawson laughed. "I believe we're taking a road trip." The next morning, Daniel, Emma, Chairman Lawson, and Victoria boarded a private jet. Their destination was one of the country's largest luxury dealerships. The dealership's CEO had requested an emergency consultation after hearing about Daniel's incredible $14 repair. When they arrived, nearly 30 engineers were gathered around a rare hybrid hypercar. Its engine was completely disassembled. Diagnostic screens covered the workshop walls. The dealership's chief engineer walked over. "We've spent 6 weeks on this car. We've replaced half the drivetrain. We've already billed the customer over $180,000. Daniel looked surprised. "And the problem still exists." The engineer sighed. "It won't start. We're preparing another estimate. This time, nearly $480,000. Emma quietly whispered, "Dad. This sounds familiar." Daniel smiled. "It usually is." Instead of walking toward the engine, Daniel sat in the driver's seat. Everyone looked confused. He pressed the start button. Nothing happened. He tried again. Still nothing. Then he noticed something unusual. The dashboard clock kept resetting every few seconds. He smiled. "Has anyone checked the low-voltage electrical system?" One engineer answered confidently. "Of course. The battery is new." Daniel nodded. "I'm not talking about the battery." He walked to the rear compartment. Hidden beneath a protective cover was a small electronic power distribution module. One connector wasn't fully locked. It looked connected, but it wasn't making proper contact. Daniel pushed it gently until it clicked into place. He looked at the chief engineer. "Try again." The start button was pressed. The hypercar came to life instantly. Every warning light disappeared. The workshop fell silent. One technician whispered, 6 weeks. Because of one loose connector. Daniel smiled. Sometimes the smallest problem creates the biggest illusion. The customer, who had been waiting anxiously in the lobby, rushed into the workshop. "It works." The chief engineer nodded. "Yes." The customer looked at Daniel. "What did you replace?" Daniel smiled. "Nothing. I simply secured a loose electrical connector." The customer laughed in disbelief. "So, my car didn't need half those expensive parts." The workshop became very quiet. Chairman Lawson looked at the dealership's management. "This is exactly why our new inspection policy exists." That afternoon, Lawson gathered executives from dealerships across the country in a conference room. He stood beside Daniel. "Today marks a new standard for our industry." He held up a document. The Brooks Verification Protocol. Every major repair estimate would now require a complete root cause inspection, an independent second review for high-cost repairs, written evidence before recommending engine replacement, customer approval based on verified findings, not assumptions. The executives applauded. Victoria smiled proudly. This policy will save customers millions. Daniel quietly replied. It will save trust. Just then, Lawson's assistant hurried into the room. Sir. You've received a message from Europe. It's from one of the world's largest supercar manufacturers. Lawson opened the email. His eyes widened. They've watched the videos of Daniel's repairs. They're inviting him to inspect a prototype that none of their engineers can fix. Emma looked at her father and smiled. Dad. I think your biggest challenge is about to begin. The following month, Daniel and Emma landed in Italy. A private shuttle drove them through the gates of one of the world's most respected automotive research centers. Inside a secure workshop sat a camouflaged prototype hypercar. It had never been shown to the public. Chairman Lawson smiled. This is the project they told us about. A senior engineer greeted Daniel. Mr. Brooks. We've followed your work. We've spent 8 months trying to solve one problem. No software update. No replacement parts. No engineering team has found the cause. Daniel looked at the prototype. I'll do my best. For nearly an hour, Daniel said almost nothing. He listened to the engine. He watched live data. He reviewed the test reports. Then he closed the laptop. I don't think this is an engine problem. The engineers looked surprised. It isn't. Daniel shook his head. It's a communication delay. He pointed toward the vehicle's electronic control network. 2 control modules are sending data at slightly different speeds. Most of the time they agree. But under heavy load, they disagree for a fraction of a second. The safety system thinks something has failed and limits performance. One engineer whispered. We never considered that. Daniel smiled. Because you were looking for broken parts. I'm looking for broken communication. The software team synchronized the modules exactly as Daniel suggested. Minutes later, the prototype completed its first flawless high-speed test. The control room erupted into applause. The chief engineer walked over with a smile. You solved in 1 afternoon what we couldn't solve in 8 months. That evening, the company's president invited Daniel onto the stage during a private engineering conference. We offered Mr. Brooks one of the highest-paying engineering positions in our company's history. Everyone applauded. The president smiled. We were confident he'd accept. Daniel thanked him politely. Then he surprised everyone. I'm honored. But I have to decline. The audience fell silent. The president looked puzzled. May I ask why? Daniel smiled. Because my dream isn't to build the world's fastest cars. It's to help ordinary people become extraordinary mechanics. Emma smiled proudly from the front row. The audience stood and applauded. 6 months later, the Brooks Automotive Academy had expanded across the country. Hundreds of students graduated every year. Many of them came from families that could never have afforded technical education. Every graduate received the same message from Daniel on their first day. Never replace knowledge with assumptions. The smallest detail can solve the biggest problem. That quote became famous throughout the automotive industry. Dealerships adopted the Brooks verification protocol. Customers saved millions of dollars by avoiding unnecessary repairs. And trust between mechanics and customers began to grow again. One afternoon, Emma looked around the busy academy workshop. Dad! Do you ever regret turning down those huge job offers? Daniel smiled as he watched a young apprentice successfully repair an engine for the first time. No. He pointed toward the smiling student. That moment is worth more than any paycheck. Emma laughed. I guess that's why people respect you. Daniel picked up his toolbox. Cars can be repaired. Businesses can be rebuilt. but helping someone believe in themselves. That's the greatest repair of all. As they closed the workshop for the evening, a plaque above the entrance reflected the setting sun. It read, "True expertise isn't measured by the price of the repair, it's measured by the wisdom to find the simplest solution." Daniel smiled. Because the greatest victory had never been fixing a $200,000 problem with a $14 part. It was proving that honesty, patience, and knowledge will always be more valuable than assumptions.